Hi, I'm Emma, and this is my visual narrative research. For this project, I chose the change as necessary brief. So first, I'm going to go into the visual personality. So this first picture on the left-hand side really intrigued me because I feel like it has all of the elements of that like describe a city, like the skyline, the sidewalk, the bus. Um, so you can definitely tell that it is a city. But what drew me in particularly was the vibrant colors and the abstract shapes that are in the sky. When I think about a city, I did a research project on polisher for visual communication design history, and it focused a lot about using like bold and bright colors to describe like the diverse urban life in New York City, and that particularly stood out to me and something that I want to incorporate using brighter, bolder colors and textures to sort of represent um, like when a community is active as it should be in sort of like a utopian world, how many different perspectives are present and sort of trying to emulate that with different colors and textures. So on the right here, I have sort of a picture showing like the duality between the two different perspectives that I'm trying to show, like in the beginning and towards the end. Um, before the changes are made. So on the left, we have an environment that's dark, there's pollution, uh, no sense of like nature or wildlife, anything like that. The trees don't have any leaves on them, sort of just showing like the degenerative mindset or the negative effects of when you don't, uh, like just of a negative mindset in general. And then to the right, we have the complete opposite. This would be when the changes are being implemented. It shows lush greenery, it shows lighter colors, brighter colors, uh, sort of just like more active of a lifestyle and one that's more environmentally friendly. And I think this just helps to show how like mindset directly impacts your environment and the relationship between them. And that's something that I hope to display throughout my design. So here are some more pictures. I plan to start with like a skyline. So here's some visual representations of some things that I'd like to see in that. As you can see in the beginning, there's no leaves or anything on the trees. I think that's important. I'm planning to incorporate like flowers throughout and showing like how they can bloom when they're taken care of. So that's just something I think it's important to note. And then I'm also planning to incorporate sort of like a flower shop. So this is something that I'd like to look like in the beginning, like sort of old and decrepit brick, sort of like falling apart, darker brown, stuff like that. And then this picture I chose on the bottom was sort of a way to show that you can sort of use the same colors, like the dark blue is seen in both the day and the night, but when it's represented differently, it can have a different meaning. So here's some more inspiration. These are actually some pictures that I took, the first two on the top. But I just recently saw Little Shop of Horrors, and I was inspired by the set of Mushnick's flower shop, sort of as like a inspiration for the flower shop that I want to create in my design. Again with the bricks and yeah. And then this is a picture that I took in Philly. This is the trash on the sidewalk. It was actually during the Eagles parade. So I want to sort of show like trash on the sidewalk and showing that what like a community can look like when it's not well taken care of. And this last picture is sort of like a symbol of like the flower growing in a sidewalk. It shows that there's hope for a positive mindset, and I think that's an important thing to note that like in the beginning when there's the degenerative mindsets and negative thoughts, that's sort of a symbol of hope that things can get better, and they will, and towards the end of the audio. So now for visual message, here are some motion clips that I found that I think would be nice to incorporate. First, here is some blooming of the flowers. I think it's important to show how they bloom from the beginning to the end, not just having them pop up because it sort of shows like the life cycle, sorry, and showing like them going from not prospering to prospering. So I think that's important. And again, sorry, it's showing how like the sun interacts um, with the flowers when it's out and vibrant towards the end. Here are some more motion graphics. I like this one with the cars because I feel like it showed a different perspective of the city and something that I think would be interesting to incorporate instead of just like a straight down perspective. I thought the top down was an interesting shot. Uh, this one over here. I like how things popped up. It kind of feels like a utopian like storybook kind of sense, which I thought was interesting. Sort of playing on like building a better world and a better society. And then this last one over here, again showing like the graphics pop up one by one, sort of like a bouncy feeling that I thought was interesting. And I also thought the turning of the tablet was an interesting element that sort of could play into like the transition between the two different dynamics of the same environment that I'm trying to show. Um, Here, this is sort of like what I was thinking about for animating people, sort of like showing texture through different shapes and like the coloration between them. And again, showing that like bouncy animation style, I think is very interesting. And then here are some visual goals. So again, going off the idea of showing like diversity through like bright and bold colors and textures, sort of like taking an illustrative style to it. That's sort of the um, like the graphic style that I plan to go for. I think a little bit simpler than what's shown here, but the same like sort of illustrative, like rough around the edges graphic style that I think adds a nice sense of texture to the city life. And I also think it's interesting to note how it's not showing colors that are representative of real life, because I think that um, like bright colors and showing things maybe not as um, close to real life can be a little bit more engaging and get the message across more of um, like the bright atmosphere. And then here I have sort of showing the symbolism of the yellow flower, um, and how like the color yellow is a symbol of light and hope, and how I hope to incorporate that throughout my design. Um, and then I have another example of some of the textures that I think are interesting. Again, playing with light and how that interacts with the city and the buildings. And then this last picture in the middle and the bottom shows sort of how the city and like nature can interact together, which I think is interesting. Um, and showing like how much having nature and greenery and all those things can brighten up environment and show like positive change within it. So that's what I have so far, and I'm excited to keep working on it. Thank you.